For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering supplies and solutions for every industry, with 24/7 support and experienced staff at over 250 local branches. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's Mike Shope and the Bulldog.
I would make this decision on my own if I were the person who emailed you. And look, be a man. And just, it's fantasy freaking football.
Mike Shope.
Make a call! You don't need his help. Figure it out. Go to a website. Download an app. What? You can't do it yourself? You need Mike's help?
And the Bulldog.
I don't know what to do. Who should I keep? It's not that hard. Pick a guy. You'll live.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Just get on with your life. It's no big deal.
So much repressed anger right there. Tomorrow's a big day for me and a group of my friends, as it is the 4th League of Shopes and Dreams fantasy draft, or rookie draft in this case. First was a startup, and this is our 3rd year just drafting the rookies like any dynasty league would do. I'm proud to say that I won the league in 2019. I've had the trophy proudly displayed in different areas of my house. Everybody likes to make fun of me about it. I carry it around sometimes just to try to get that sort of ridicule from my kids, and often they deliver. Likewise, I have the trophy for last year's winner, Kevin Payne, all made up, and was telling my kids last night how, kids, the trophy is leaving us Saturday. So would you like to talk about it? Would you like to ask any questions? Maybe hold it? They both just walked away. No interest at all. So Kevin, I wouldn't call it a problem, but this will be your thing now to deal with at home. And I don't know how it goes in your house. Do your family members rave about your trophies and your accomplishments in fantasy football?
Well, first of all, I will start with, I've been a finalist for all 3 years that the league has been in existence, something that nobody else can say.
That's true. But
the other thing I would bring up is we have been doing soccer nonstop. My daughter plays for the Western New York Flash. They won the Erie Premier. They were playing up a year, and they still beat the girls a year older and won the tournament. And she came home with the trophy, and I recently got a pocket beagle, which is a 7-pound dog of hyperactivity. So we tried to put her into the cup to make a picture of it. It really did not work out, but I might try with this cup and see if we can get a better result. I'm going to have a lot more time with this as the members of that team passed the trophy around, so we only had it for a couple days.
Yes, you should have most of the next year. Unfortunately, it's just a football. You won't be able to put anything in it.
Okay.
But hopefully you enjoy it just the same.
Maybe I can balance her on top of it somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll work.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Ryan Gates, myself, and now Kevin Payne of RotoWire, the League of Shopes and Dreams champions. Tomorrow morning we begin, or tomorrow afternoon, we begin year 4. The draft is when, at least this seems right to me, Kevin, when league members can talk about just like sort of the rules, the format, maybe they sort of have different ideas, because it's the one day of the year where you're all together. Like we don't have any sort of extra stuff in our league, at least not yet. So I thought, there were different ideas that came up. We'll take tomorrow and debate them, including whether we should make a transition from a 1-quarterback league to a 2-quarterback league. But I think you and I agree that that's complicated.
It is. So the league's been in existence, as you just said, for 3 years. And had I known we were going to transition, even say 5 years out, say, okay, we're going to go to Superflex, a possible second quarterback 5 years from now, totally would have changed my draft strategy initially, would have changed my draft strategy the last 2 years, and what I've done with trades. So this offseason, even let's say right now, we're going to go ahead and change this in 2 or 3 years. in this offseason, I traded Deshaun Watson. I would not have traded Deshaun Watson, or I would have traded him for a lot more capital than what I got back. I would not have traded with you. I traded out of the third pick. I would have kept that third pick and taken a quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind. So I actually reached out to some friends that who I respect and who I think are good people in the industry and said, look, what do you think about in a dynasty league switching halfway and going to Superflex? And they all said it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It will not work. And if it does, the only way it will work is it has to have and I know you were pushing towards like a majority vote. Like what do we just have in the Senate? That somehow the majority didn't win. It would have to be a unanimous vote. It would have to be 12-0. Everybody's in agreement. Everybody's happy with it. And I think this is kind of a case of, and I'm always for this in any type of fantasy. And I've done every single fantasy: basketball, football, baseball, hockey. When you go ahead and you're trying to perfect the mousetrap, which I'm all for.
Mm-hmm.
If the current mousetrap is working, stick with the mousetrap that's catching the mouse. So I really am really dead set against it, just because I don't think it's fair, and I don't even think if we said it's going to happen 5 years down the road. What everybody's going to do is they're going to hoard quarterbacks. There's going to be a lot of lopsided trades in the middle or late of the season so people can get high picks and get a quarterback for the next season. And I just think it's headed to disaster. So I am dead set against switching halfway through a dynasty league and going to a 2-quarterback format.
Okay. Interesting. Good.
The one thought I had, because I'm in another league that's considering a similar big shift, it's more amount of keepers, really. It's more of a keeper league right now, and it wants to go to a dynasty league. And that league has decided that if we do this, it'll be a couple years from now, and it'll just be a restart. That, like, the league will start over, essentially. So it'll be the same group of guys. We'll call it the same thing, but a few years out, the teams themselves, like, you're not going to have that competitive advantage because you drafted a guy under a previous set of rules. So that could apply here, but I'm with Kevin in that. I think if you're in a couple years into a dynasty league, I think you can't go for a major change to what the league actually is at its core.
Well, that all makes a lot of sense. After the first year, there were things about it, having set it up, that I would have wanted to change, that I wanted to do differently. And Kevin, I don't know if you remember this, but like Jeremy helped a lot. I spent so much time that first off season. All right, what if we change this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and we'll just discuss all these things. I ended up just bailing out. Like, it isn't worth it. You have people who've already started down paths, and, like, let's just leave it alone the way you're talking now. I do have sort of this, like, compulsion that, like, it's not interesting enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. I'm sort of like that about this, and I think that's what drives me. But just so you know, like, no decision was ever made on this. It's just been a debate on the message board, and I was glad to see you get there.
Yeah, it's always a talking point. You can always try to improve your fantasy league no matter what it is. As I said, any different sport, you can try to go ahead. You can try to, as I said, make the mousetrap better. But I think this mousetrap works right now. The other thing I would say, too, is like I talked to a few friends who are in the industry who I respect, and they were just like, the only way I can see it working, besides, as I said, the unanimous vote, 12-0, that we go ahead and do this and we go to the 2-quarterback system, is that you let people know ahead of time and you make certain rules. For example, you can keep one quarterback. That's it. Or you can keep, however many players on your roster. Figure out what the formula is going to be and send that out instead of just saying we're going to 2 quarterbacks rosters as they are. So I could see if there was a certain formula using all that. You keep one quarterback, then we go ahead and do the draft. That would work, and say, but it's got to be like years out. It can't be next year. It can't be the year after. Can't be even the year after that. It can't even be 2014 or 2024. Excuse me. So that's what you got to figure out. You got to figure out what's the perfect formula and get everybody on board and say, okay, I can live with that.
Kevin Payne of RotoWire. Well, moving on, somewhat at least, as it happens, this is a year where strategy would be a lot different. And we're both in numerous leagues, I'm sure you are, and there are 1-quarterback rookie drafts like ours tomorrow, and they're okay. Like, the first round is okay. It's maybe pretty average. The fact that there are these elite quarterbacks picked in the first round of the NFL draft doesn't matter that much. Like, maybe you'll see 1 or 2, but in a Superflex draft, they're usually like 1, 2, 3, or maybe Kyle Pitts works up there or someone else, but 3 of the first 4, that kind of thing. So it's a big difference. And so, again, this year is a great year for quarterbacks in 2 quarterback leagues anyway in rookie drafts. How do you sort of size up, at the risk of, giving anything away? I don't want you to feel like you're doing that. But, I think you would agree that's the consensus about these rookies, and, people have different tastes when it comes to them.
Yeah, and so here's the interesting thing, and I've got pick 7 and pick 13 in the first round. I traded out of the 3rd spot. I always go with who's the best player available, no matter what. So I'm set. I've got Patrick Mahomes. I've got Daniel Jones. He's my backup. It's going to be tough to pass up Justin Fields if he's there at 7. And I'll tell you why. Because we do a lot of deals in this league. And I've traded with a lot of people. Mike, you've made more trades than anybody in this league. And that's the whole part of being a fantasy owner. That's the fun part of it, is going ahead and being the GM of your fantasy team. So I always go ahead and say take the best player. I think with these quarterbacks, it's a real good class. It's really just tough, though, to gauge because it was kind of such an odd season. A guy like Jamar Chase, he opted out, which I totally understand. So, he's on most of the draft charts, he's the top wide receiver. And I think he's going to go first off the board in most dynasty drafts. But it's tough to go ahead and say, do we really trust what we've seen the last couple of, the last year because of everything that's happened and what a weird football season it was for the college game. You mentioned Kyle Pitts. Look, who's Atlanta going to throw the ball to? He's going to be the second target. So it should be very interesting, I think, to see how this draft goes and to see. You said something the other day. You tweeted something out the other day about the 3rd round in a few years ago. And I think in 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to go ahead and tweet out what happened in the first round, who was selected for fantasy drafts. And I think it'll be very interesting to see which guys succeeded and which guys were kind of busts. Yeah, that's really fun to do. Even in the real draft, to look back and see what players were available that your team, the Bills, say passed on. And we have some veterans mixed in with our draft because we make a few cuts. And there are some interesting names in that respect this year. That's what you're referring to, I think, partly with that tweet from the other day, the 3rd round guys. We had Demaryius Thomas go in the 3rd round of our draft, our rookie, quote-unquote, rookie draft. Anyway, let's talk about some fantasy topics here, Kevin, that really just are not specific to our league. Most redraft leagues, like the kind of leagues most people are in, are at least a month away from kicking up, maybe 2 months. Christian McCaffrey seems to be as much the consensus first overall pick as he was last year. Are you finding that, and are you on board? Yes and yes. I mean, so much comes out of these camps, and nothing is ever negative. I am yet to read, a report that this guy's fat, not out of shape, and not ready to play football. He's been eating Krispy Kremes all off season. So Christian McCaffrey says he's back. He's 100%. Saquon Barkley's like, oh yeah, I'm back. I'm going to be better than ever. So you got all these positive stories, and sometimes you just kind of got to weed through the information and ignore all the kind of puff pieces, if you will. So McCaffrey, gosh, I got to think if he's back, they're going to go ahead and use him as much as they can. We've seen how dominant he's been in the past, and especially in our league. When you go ahead and take a look at a guy like him who catches so many passes out of the backfield, literally plays called from that are just swing passes, like an extension of a running play. So, yes, for me, McCaffrey is definitely the number 1 overall, especially if you're doing any type of PPR league. Mm-hmm.
Saquon Barkley, who was right behind him last year, coming off an ACL, and no, they're not calling him fat or out of shape, but there is a little bit of apprehension, I think, in the air about Barkley in the beginning of the season. Where does he fall for you?
So, gosh, it depends on how you think you're going to construct your draft. If you can go ahead and get it's always easy to say go ahead and get a quarterback later. Patrick Mahomes delivered. There's been numerous cases where you can go ahead and wait on the quarterback and get some value. So if you can think you can go ahead and get a good wide receiver in the second round, I have no problem taking Saquon Barkley in the middle of the first round. Now, this team's going to be very interesting because I like Daniel Jones a lot. I think he's kind of a sleeper this year. I think he's a guy you can wait on and take. Kenny Galladay, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. They drafted Kadarius Toney. there's a lot there. This offense is going to be good, and it's not like that division isn't up for grabs because it totally is. I think the division will be much better, especially Dak Prescott coming back. But I really like what the Giants have done this offseason, especially with the offensive line. So if Saquon Barkley and him and Christian McCaffrey both, if they come in at a reduced price, given the fact that they're coming off injuries, I have no problem taking either one of them. And I'll also tell you this. The good thing about both those guys is those injuries happened early. So the fact of the matter is they got ahead of a lot of time to go ahead and recover. They had the surgery. They've been rehabbing. I think they're both going to be okay, especially stuff like, I know ACL sounds bad, but as somebody who's torn both their ACLs, the recovery time is not nearly what it was. And these guys don't have the access to the medical staff that I did. So I think both these guys are going to be okay. If they come at any type of discounts, I'm going to go ahead and take them. But again, Saquon Barkley, no problem taking him in the middle of the first round, especially if the way you're thinking you're going to construct your roster, you're going to get wide receiver, maybe another running back in the third round, another wide receiver, and then go quarterback a little bit later.
With Kevin Payne of RotoWire on Twitter at KCPayne, Payne 26. So let's talk about roster builds for a minute here. It seems to me that what's very much in fashion is the zero RB strategy, so avoiding running backs, or at least maybe what they call modified, where you draft one and then you stay out of it for a while. So much so, Kevin, that it almost seems contrarian at this point to draft 2 or 3 running backs early. That's how the wind seems to be blowing from what I consume. Do you sense that too? Do you agree with it? And, like, what is better?
So it's interesting. So the NFL, in fantasy, I should say, kind of shifted years ago because running backs were so much more valuable than wide receivers. We started going ahead and saying, hey, why don't we do PPR? Let's do full-point PPR, which is what our league is. That way the wide receivers catch up to the running backs. I think it's a year-by-year case. And I would say this year there's a lot of good running backs that I would go at early and have no problem taking. I think that you've got to get one in the first 2 rounds. I wouldn't go zero running back right away personally in redraft leagues. But I also think that you can go ahead and, as you said, wait maybe a few more rounds until you take that running back too. Maybe take like a Mike Davis from Atlanta who's going to get the lion's share of carries. And in the meantime, go ahead and get the wide receivers. Maybe go ahead and get a George Kittle or a top tight end in those middle rounds, and then go quarterback late. So I just think it depends on how your draft goes, especially for redraft leagues. You know, if running backs are going really heavy early, go ahead and build up on wide receiver. That's usually what I do. And if nobody's taking running backs early, then go ahead and build up on running backs. I think it just depends really on how your draft ends up going.
Got about 3 more minutes here, Kevin. Let's talk Green Bay. So you have people who want out on Devontae Adams or out on Aaron Jones because of the uncertainty around Aaron Rodgers. Then you might just in turn have people who feel like those are opportunities, and that even without Rodgers, perhaps, they're still, excellent guys to have in fantasy. Where do you come down on the Packers?
So that's very interesting. Every Sunday or every Thursday, I do Green Bay Packers radio, doing fantasy stuff, and those fans are right on the same level as Bills fans as far as loyalty goes. Mm-hmm. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be fine. I actually believe he's going to be back with the team. I think he's a Green Bay guy through and through. I think he's not happy with the whole Jordan Love situation and not giving him wide receivers. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And you would think that the front office would have good communication with him on what they're doing and what their game plan is. So all that being said, I've got no problem with Aaron Jones being I'm not so high on him because I think A.J. Dillon's going to have a good role. And he's a guy that, as you know, I drafted last year in the League of Hopes and Dreams. And Devontae Adams is Devontae Adams. I don't care who's throwing to him. He's going to catch passes. I mean, people are going to struggle to remember this, but people used to make a lot of fun of Devontae Adams because he used to drop a lot of passes. Mm-hmm. Guess what? He does not anymore. I mean, he's an absolutely amazing wide receiver, easily top 3 guy in the league. So I think he's going to be – and Robert Tonyan came on like a beast last year. So I think Rodgers ultimately will be back with the team. I don't think Jordan Love is really that good. So I think the Packers are going to make a hard play to keep Aaron Rodgers in-house because they believe that's the only way that they're going to go ahead and win. And remember, too, wherever Aaron Rodgers thinks he wants to be traded to, I don't know that he's going to find a better offensive line. They've got some really good players there. Bakhtiari, the left tackle, watches his back. He's a really good offensive lineman. So I think ultimately Rodgers comes back, and I think all those guys are going to be just fine. So if they end up coming at a discount because people are worried that Aaron Rodgers is going to leave town, go ahead and eat up that discount.
All right, Kevin, one more. It's just in a minute or so. Who is somebody that you're finding that you're much higher on than the community? So you're drafting a lot of them, or you're planning to?
I'll give you a couple guys real quick. Quarterback Joe Burrow. I like when I take a look at a guy and I'm like, okay, how do I rank these wide receivers? Where do I put Jamar Chase? Where do I put Tyler Boyd? Where do I put T. Higgins? Wait a sec. Who's the guy throwing to him? And it's Joe Burrow. And obviously he's got a good familiarity with Jamar Chase. So Joe Burrow is the guy that I would take a look at. It's a little bit of a sleeper at quarterback. At running back, I already mentioned him. The guy who's going to get the lion's share of carry, who took over for Todd Gurley, Mike Davis. He paid off, and he's going in the middle rounds, and he's going to get a lot of carries. So he's another guy that I would go ahead and take a look at. And any of these rookies, I would buy into them. We really saw last year that a lot of the rookies, especially the wide receivers, I would go ahead and take a chance on. Travis Etienne, I love the guy, but James Robinson's still there, so I might back off on him. Najee Harris, though, for the Steelers, he's a guy that I would take a look at. And Ben Roethlisberger, look, he's got 3 really good wide receivers to throw to. He's got Claypool. So he would be another guy that I would take a look at as a quarterback we can take in the later rounds, who I think might still have a little gas left in the tank.
All right. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. And it's Joe's birthday. So he's got a round coming for sure. Should be a great day. Draft day is always great.
Not round 1, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a round coming, but he's not in round 1. That's a good point. To clear that up. All right, Kevin, thanks. See you tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Talk to you later.
For the ones who know safety isn't a catchphrase, it's a culture. And the ones who help make sure everyone makes it home safe. For the safety-minded who watch everyone's backs, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as safety assessments and training to keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.